Can y'all hear me now? Duh. I didn't even bring myself on screen. No wonder y'all couldn't hear me. Golly. Okay, can y'all hear me now? All right. Now my camera isn't working, but then I was like, what's going on with the thing with my camera isn't working, y'all. I have no idea what's going on with this daggone camera. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's happening. All right. Come on in, you guys. I'm so sorry. This is Janae, I got your email. I'm going to respond. We're having trouble streaming to YouTube. This may be an issue. So they're having trouble. So maybe it's not me. Maybe it's YouTube. Because I just got an error message saying they're having trouble streaming to YouTube because my webcam is not working. My regular camera is working, but my webcam is not working. So give me a quick second. Hey, everybody, come on in. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's been real ghetto today. Yeah. All right, we're going to get started. I don't know why my camera isn't working, but we're going to go ahead and get started because I'm not going to keep holding up the show. I do apologize for the delay. Yeah, this isn't working. All right, as you can see, my webcam isn't working. Y'all can definitely tell the difference. I'm sure the quality is a little different. I apologize, but we're going to roll with the show. We're just going to have to, because the only thing I know how to do is to do some troubleshooting, and I would have to stop the live. So I don't know why it's not working, but let's just make it work. Let's just do what it do. All right, you guys, welcome again. My apologies for the delay. I had let me see. I had set the live, and I thought I had scheduled it for 8:30, but I realized I scheduled it for 6:30. So y'all were waiting for me at 6:30, and I didn't even know I had set it for 6:30. Tracy sent me a message and was like, girl, you know you got us waiting for you. And I was like, waiting on what? You blame OJ? Child. So thank you, Nitwit. So what happened was last night I was supposed to watch the episode, but I got caught up bringing y'all the information on Dan Schneider, and I never did go back. Hold on, let me cut my light off behind me because I feel like it's glaring right into the camera. Hold on. I don't know what this is gonna look like, but I felt like that light was right in the screen. What up, Shade in the city? Hey. All right, it looks a little menacing, but I felt like that light was like right there. Child, if y'all look at my old videos, honey, these my old videos from back in the day, honey. Yes. Oh well. But we're gonna make it do what it do. So this was part 4 of the OJ Simpson documentary. You see, Lifetime announced that they get ready to do a Nicole Brown Simpson documentary by the same producers of R. Kelly. I'm gonna just tell y'all now, I'm probably not gonna watch it. I'm probably not gonna review it because here's the thing. I think we're gonna get into it as we talk. What I just knock on the floor? As we talk through this episode, we're going to get into it, y'all. We are going to get into it, okay? So let's go into this episode. Now, I'm going to tell y'all right now, y'all might not agree with me when we get done with this episode because I have some very strong feelings about some things that went down to this episode, okay? So part 4 was dealing with the actual trial. Right, the spirit of OJ came through my camera. It probably did, child. So we started the episode off with Mark Ferman, and we found out that Mark Ferman had been called to OJ Simpson's house before on a DV call with Nicole. He said that when he got there, he said, I didn't know I didn't know whose house I was going to, but when I got there, I saw a guy standing by a tree with a bat in his hand. I saw Nicole sitting on the curb crying, and she was sitting in front of a Mercedes. He said the model of the Mercedes, and the windshield had been busted in. Now, I don't know if this is because I already know who Mark Ferman is and I already know him for his works, or if I just heard this in his voice, but I felt like once he realized what was going on, he was disgusted, right? But I felt like he was more disgusted at the fact that we have this interracial couple, this rich black man with this white woman that he's clearly, in that moment, she seems terrorized, right? And when he asked her, do you want to make a report? And she said no. He was like, you could hear the venom coming through his voice. You know what I'm saying? Like you can hear it coming through his voice. And he was like, well, it's your life. Now, again, it could be me, because I already know him for his works. You feel me? But I heard it. I heard something in his voice. I heard it. Okay. So at the beginning of the trial, they said they started the trial off with the DV, right? They showed the pictures. They gave firsthand accounts, talking about the different calls to the house and all the different things. They played the 911 tapes. Like they really wanted to lay the foundation, and I think shocked the jury a little bit because, again, I'm gonna speak for myself. We hadn't gotten a lot of that information about O.J. Simpson. Like I said, there was that one case where she did actually press charges where he pled no contest, and he kind of blew it off like we just had a really bad night. Things got out of control, and then she ended up going back to him. So for most of us on the outside looking in, we kind of accepted that. And let me not say we, I'll say I don't want to speak for everybody. When I say we again, I mean, I kind of just accepted that, right? Because there was nothing else to our knowledge, right? Because remember, y'all, if those types of things had happened in today's world, we would know it. There would be TMZ all over every time Nicole Brown Simpson made a 911 call. TMZ would talk about it, and then they would release the call. But there was no TMZ back then. So, I feel like it's getting darker and darker. Y'all, I feel like it's dark. Y'all feel like it's dark? Y'all let me know. I feel like it's just dark. So we didn't get a lot of that stuff, right? And especially if we weren't in the area. Like, if we weren't in LA, hey, Bama girl, hey, everybody coming in, we didn't really get a lot of that. So anyway, like I said, I feel a lot of those things we didn't get. So to start the trial off like that, I didn't think it was a bad strategy from the prosecution. I don't think it was a bad strategy. They said they went to her safe deposit box, and that's where she had kept a lot of these pictures and stuff, which I think that told the story within itself too. Like it was almost like she was keeping an insurance card, right? It's almost like she was keeping an insurance card. I can't remember, did the tabloids report his DV back then? Because I never heard of DV with OJ until the murder. Me either, Corey. And I'm going to say this. If it was reported, it was in something like the National Enquirer. And you know, back then, the National Enquirer wasn't respected. Even though the National Enquirer was like the white version of Media Takeout, right? Media Takeout, sometimes they do get it right. But because they get it wrong more than they get it right, or they'll have a piece of it right. You know what I mean? They'll have a piece of it right, but then so much of it be wrong, you'd be like, well, I can't listen to what the hell they done said. So I think there may have been stuff in the National Enquirer, but like you said, it never really, I don't remember it hitting mainstream until Nicole was gone. And even with that no contest, if you weren't really, excuse me, in tune, you still didn't get it. I know I didn't. I'm gonna speak again. When I say we, just substitute we for me, okay? Now there were 2 jury members that they spoke to throughout this documentary. There was one younger Black woman who, come to find out, she was only 24 when she became a juror. And I'm not saying that at 24 you're too young to understand, but I do think a lot of the complexities of the case may have been a lot for her. And then there was the older Black woman. Now let me tell you what this older Black woman has said. I wrote it down. The older Black woman said, I have no respect for any woman that takes on an unnecessary ass whooping. She said, I don't understand that if you find yourself drowning, why you don't get out the water. So if that, and here's the crazy thing, I could see if she said, I was a lot younger then, I didn't have the life experiences that I have now, and that's how I felt in that moment. I'm older now, I see things differently, and I may have looked at the evidence differently. Baby, she said, yeah, I don't have no respect for a woman that take on an unnecessary ass whooping. Baby, I had to write that thing down. I said, what? Now, they only talked to the 2 jurors, so I don't know what the rest of the jurors was talking about. But, baby, if those were the 2, I said, damn. So Ronald Shipp ended up testifying, right? And you're right, Mimi. A lot of women do think like her. I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm really laughing more how she said it. But it's really not funny because we do tend to blame the victim. Now, here's the thing. I do have my thoughts on Nicole Brown Simpson. But what I'm not going to do is blame her for being in a cycle of abuse. Now, I got my thoughts on some other things. Like the fact that you knew that was a married man when you went into a whole affair with him. And some other things that you made, some other decisions you may have made, like sleeping with, his mentee. I might have some thoughts, but I'm not going to blame her for being in a cycle of toxicity because we know that when it comes to that, we know it's bigger than just, well, if you ain't want to get hit, leave. We know it's bigger than that. But, okay, moving on. So Ron Shipp decides he's going to testify. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have mixed thoughts on Ron Shipp. And let me say this. I'm not making any personal, or at least I don't want it to come off sounding like I'm making a personal, what's the word I'm looking for? Indictment of him as a person. However, this is how I feel about Ron Shipp. I feel like Ron Shipp was an enabler of O.J. Simpson for a very long time. Do I think that they were friends? I think it was very surface. I think Ron Shipp probably felt like O.J. Simpson was a friend of his, but I feel like O.J. Simpson looked at Ron Shipp as an asset to his team because he was a cop that patrolled the neighborhood he lived in, and he knew what he had going on with Nicole and maybe some other things that he might have been getting into. I'm not saying like he was, robbing people or nothing like that. But you know, who's to say there weren't some other things that Ron helped him with? And I think that as long as Ron felt like it was just harmless stuff, I think he was okay with it. But then once it came down to Nicole, I don't believe. See, here's what you can't do with me. You can't sell me one thing and then give me something different and I'm supposed to pivot. So let me give you two examples of what I mean by that. The first example I'm going to give you is Mark Ferman. If I remember correctly, going back to episode 2, I think, maybe even 3, Mark Ferman said when he first got to O.J. Simpson's house, he ain't know whose house he was at first. But now we found out that you did go to a DV call at that house. You're not going to sit here and tell me you didn't know that you might not have known before you got there the first time, but you damn sure knew when you left. You damn sure knew when you left, right? So that's number one. I didn't forget that you said that. Now this is me. So let me say this about Ron Shipp. When Ron Shipp was talking about how he got the job in Brentwood, he was a police officer in Brentwood, and he was talking about how cushy of a job it was and how he couldn't believe how easy it was because there was hardly ever any crime. There was hardly ever anything going on there. They certainly didn't have a bunch of homicides and stuff of that nature. So life was actually pretty good when he got up to Brentwood. So what you're not going to convince me of is a neighborhood, an affluent neighborhood, right? Where you do not have a lot of crime, you do not have a lot of things going on, and all of a sudden you got this black man married to this white woman that has had multiple DV calls, whether she made a report or not. I don't believe that y'all didn't know. Now that's just me, and I mean at this point it don't matter. It is what it is. He ain't here no more. So OJ, ain't here no more. So it really doesn't matter. But I don't believe it. Now he decided he was going to testify, and that's great. That's great that he testified, right? They tore his ass up on the stand, and you know how they were able to tear his ass up on the stand? Because him and OJ were friends, and OJ knew his business. And whether OJ was telling the truth or lying, I feel like OJ told enough of the truth that it was plausible enough, because they showed clips of that man testifying, and he was when they were asking him questions about doing favors and did he look the other way when certain things were going on, basically accusing him of being a dirty cop, right? Now, I don't think he was a dirty cop in the sense of planting evidence dirty. We're going to get to Mark Ferman later. I don't think he was dirty in that sense, but I think it might have been dirty from the sense of you looking the other way, or you're taking gifts. Like, you are in an affluent neighborhood. You are in a quote-unquote rich neighborhood. I could see you taking gifts in exchange for ... Y'all know what I'm saying? And OJ gave all that information to his attorneys. Now, was it true? I don't know. Do I think that there was enough under the surface of it being true that he didn't have a strong enough defense to the questions? Yes. And it made him look like a bumbling fool. When they showed them clips, he was you could see he got frustrated. He was like, now come on, y'all are attacking me. Sir, what did you think was going to happen? You have been a cop. You have been a career cop. Even if you haven't testified in a lot of trials, sir, you know what it is. You couldn't have possibly thought that OJ was just going to let you sit there and talk about how all the things he did to Nicole and what you heard, what you witnessed, what you saw, what you knew. You had to, you couldn't have possibly thought that he wasn't going to fight back. And you couldn't have possibly thought he wasn't going to fight dirty. I'm confused. So they said that after Ron Shipp testified and the way Johnny Cochran and his people told him up on the stand, they said a whole lot of people that had agreed to testify to tell OJ business was like, yeah, no, I'm good. Well, girl, you have fun on your cruise. We'll be here. You know it ain't going to be on private, child. You come on back. Catch the replay, boo. Enjoy your day. Have a good time. Yeah, so that's why I was like, I heard what they were saying, but some of this stuff, I was like, y'all playing with me. Y'all playing in my face. Okay. So then we had this whole segment of them talking about how basically this became a celebrity event, right? They talked about how it was more of infotainment than a court case. You know, they had the cameras in the courtroom and how everybody was performing for the camera and everything became important. The outfit you wore was performative. Marsha Clark said that one day she wore a white dress and everybody kept asking her, well, what's the symbolism behind the white dress? And she was like, girl, because it was clean. Like, there's nothing symbolic about my dress. They talked about O.J. Simpson's defense team, how they would coordinate and everything for them it meant something. How Johnny Cochran would wear these kente cloth ties and these kente print, handkerchiefs and stuff like that. And they were saying how even Judge Ito had gotten starstruck, all the celebrities that were coming by to see him. They said one day Larry King was just hanging out in the judge's chambers. They said Judge Ito started dressing a little bit better, honey. He started getting better haircuts because he knew the camera was going to be on him. And they just talked about how everybody got caught up in that whirlwind of celebrity. And it was so sensational, right? O.J. Simpson's current girlfriend, Paula, how she did Playboy during this time and how she did all these interviews and stuff like that. They talked about Marsha Clark, how her motherhood, she was a single mother. They talked about her divorce. And I remember that. And I do remember that. I do remember them talking about her divorce. And I think her husband was trying to take her back to court because she was spending so much time on the trial. And he was saying it wasn't safe for his kids. I don't remember all of the details, but I do think I remember something along those lines, of that being something that was coming up. And her and Chris Darden had a whole affair, honey, while this case was going on. I guess it wasn't an affair because he was single and she was single. So I guess it was more like they was dating. But that didn't come out till later. But it was rumors. It was rumors. I'm skeptical about people being called brilliant. However, Johnny Cochran earned the title brilliant. He absolutely, listen. I agree with you, Marnie. We should not be handing out those types of titles lightly. But the reality of the situation is Johnny Cochran absolutely was, he was brilliant, and he definitely understood this genre of celebrity, being a celebrity lawyer. He understood the camera. He understood the power of the camera and what it did, right? I was this morning while I was getting ready for work, I was listening to the Club Shay Shay interview with Charles Barkley. And Charles Barkley was saying how he never understood how powerful television was. He said Michael Wilbon, who's his mentor, Michael Wilbon wrote for the Washington Post for many, many years. And he said, I wrote for the Washington Post for 20 years, never had a problem. I could walk around DC. Nobody knew who I was, never had an issue. Nobody ever said nothing to me. The minute I started doing PTI, which is one of my favorite shows that comes on every day on ESPN, he said, all of a sudden now, everybody got an opinion. Everybody see me. They know who I am because it's visual. Now we can see you. We can put a face to the name. And Johnny Cochran understood that. Johnny Cochran understood what we saw versus what we see and hear. Yeah. And, again, a lot of what happened to Marsha Clark, as I look back on it, a lot of what happened to Marsha Clark was very sexist. It was very, very sexist because it's kind of like with the Hillary Clinton thing when she was running for president, they would ask Donald Trump about climate change, and then they would ask Hillary Clinton about her suit, her dress, her outfit. I'm sorry, what? So, the globe. Who is the globe? If Cochran were still alive, do you think he represent the globe? I don't know who that is, Chuck. Who is the globe? You're gonna have to put a name on that. I don't know what you're talking about. The defense absolutely understood the assignment. And we're going to get to that in a minute. That's why I said I have some very strong feelings about some stuff. But anyway, so a lot of this episode dealt with the whole celebrity of it all. So then we get into Mark Ferman. Well, the prosecutors were going along with this case as business as usual. Do I think that Johnny? Absolutely not. No. I do not think, and this is my opinion, I could be wrong. I ain't know Johnny Cochran personally. I do not think there is enough money that Donald Trump, he could represent Donald Trump. I do not believe that. I believe that there may be some other celebrity cases that may have been controversial that he might have taken. Maybe. But I do not believe he would have taken that case. No. I think he possibly could have took the Bill Cosby case. Oh, that's what gloat means. Okay. I think he possibly could have taken the Bill Cosby case. Yes. I could see him doing that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know about some of these other cases, but the Bill Cosby case, definitely I could see that. Okay. Yeah, I really don't like this lighting. It is irking my soul. I don't like it. I feel like I'm very, very dark. But I don't want to turn the light back on. I don't know. I'm going to give it a few minutes. Okay. So then we get into Mark Ferman, right? Listen. You feel like I'm at a camp? Yeah, I just feel it's dark. Okay, give me a minute. Just give me a minute. Okay. All right. So Mark Ferman, they got into the whole idea of Mark Ferman and him using the word nigga, right? They had him testifying because a whole lot of their case hinged on being able to sell the idea Brooklyn, I understand what you're saying. Brooklyn Carter said he wasn't representing anyone famous after the Puffy case. I have thoughts on that. I still think he could have. I think if he was still alive and in good health, I think he could have been convinced to do Bill Cosby. That's just what I believe. I think part of the reason why he decided not to do any more celebrity cases, I think when that happened, I think he already knew. I think he knew he was sick, and I think he wanted to focus on wrongfully convicted. He was going to get Geronimo Pratt out of jail before he died. Like he was absolutely going to do that before he died. And I think he knew he was sick. And I think that he was focused on that. Had he been in good health and was still alive when Bill Cosby got in trouble, I think he could have been convinced to do it. Now, again, I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't know. But I think he could have been convinced to do it. Do I think he would have taken any old celebrity case? No. But Bill Cosby, I think he'd done it. Anyway, but I also think part of the reason why now, knowing what we know about Puffy now, I think maybe part of the reason, maybe that whole Puffy case left a bad taste in his mouth. Maybe there's a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes in light of what has been coming out. You know what I'm saying? You know, between OJ and Puffy, you know. Yeah, I agree, Brooklyn. I agree with you saying. So a lot of their case hinged on them convincing the jury that, hey, Lolisa, that Mark Ferman was this horrible guy that could plant evidence. Like, it hinged on them convincing the jury that the capacity was there for this man to plant evidence, right? So they put him on the stand to ask him about the evidence that he had collected. And F. Lee Bailey, and if you guys do not know who F. Lee Bailey is, F. Lee Bailey is, I mean, when you want to talk about a superstar lawyer that goes back decades, F. Lee Bailey was that guy. White, guy who had represented Patty Hearst and any numerous other celebrities in high-profile cases. F. Lee Bailey said, let me get his ass. Okay, well, Jonathan, I mean, if he was too old, he was too old. I'm just bringing it up. I'm just saying. So, this is something that some of y'all are not going to agree with what I'm getting ready to say. And again, I love y'all anyway. And I hope y'all still love me too. If you watch that documentary and you watch that clip of F. Lee Bailey cross-examining Mark Ferman about his use of the word nigga, and I am specifically saying it, every time I heard F. Lee Bailey say the word, something jerked in me. Not anger, wasn't angry, but hearing that white man say the word, something jerked in me, right? And I wasn't upset and I'm not offended. See, I'm not one of those people that feel like we should never say words if we're using them in context. I'm not one of those people. I think that whenever we say the N-word, we're taking the venom out of that word, and we're taking away the reaction, and we're taking away the emotion that is connected to it. When you say the N-word, it don't sound the same as, so Mr. Ferman, have you been known to say the N-word from time to time? It takes something away versus hearing F. Lee Bailey say, so Mr. Ferman, have you referred to black people as niggas? Mr. Ferman, so you're telling me you've never used the word nigger? So, Mr. Ferman, you are saying that in your time on the police force, there's never been an occasion that you would call a suspect a nigger? No, that's it, vintage. You remove the sting out of it. And that's for any racial epithet, right? Now, I'm not saying willy-nilly use it. I'm saying when it's in context and it is appropriate, I ain't got no issue with it. Even when they were showing the news broadcast from back then, when they were giving us clips of the news, even the news broadcasters were saying the word nigga. They weren't saying he used the N-word. Right, Chuck. When you say it, and I mean, again, because remember the other day, what was that the other day? We were talking about what Mary Crosby had said about Lisa Barlow's son, and all people kept saying, oh, well, she said the R word. She said the R word. And I was like, well, I don't even know which R word it is. Say the word. Listen, if she was bold enough to say it, then repeat it. Put something on it. We as a society have got to stop being so sensitive and that we can't even have the conversation when it's appropriate. When it's appropriate. Anyway, I'm just not one of those people that feel like if somebody says the word in the right context, then that means, oh my gosh, you can't. Oh my gosh, don't say that word. Not if it's in the appropriate context. And that to me was a perfect example because it hit different. It hit different hearing this white man talk to another white man and say, so you mean to tell me you never said that word? Now, Mark Ferman, who, let me say this, I'm going to give Mark Ferman credit for something. Mark Ferman had the balls to do this documentary. Now, I don't like this mofo. I don't respect this mofo. And I think that I do believe that he has done some nasty, nasty things in his career as a police officer. I believe that 120%. Ain't nobody going to convince me different. But I'm going to give him credit for standing in it and talking about it. Now, was he trying to justify it? Of course. But I'm definitely going to I don't want to say the word respect. I'm going to give him credit because Chris Darden didn't do the interview. I didn't see Chris Darden on this documentary anywhere. I saw Marsha Clark. I saw the DA at the time. I saw some of the other people on the trial, on the prosecution side. I didn't see Chris Darden. And I'm not saying he had to do it, but all I'm saying is I'm going to give him that much to say, well, you at least stood in the gap and you came down here and you told the story. Now, I still don't like the story and I still don't believe a lot of what you said. Right? So in that moment, Mark Ferman said, no, I never used that word. No, I never said it. No. Knowing he was lying when he said it. And like he said, in that moment, I had a choice. Either I admit I said the word and now I look like a racist, or I deny it and hope that my evidence gets in because I believe this man is guilty. Well, he gambled and he lost. Now, here's the thing, Mark Ferman, and again, you knew this. You had to know when you lied, and I know sometimes when somebody asks you a question, you got a split second. You got a split second. But you had to know when F. Lee freaking Bailey, not some old Joe Blow off the street, not some old whoever, whatever. F. Lee freaking Bailey said to you, are you sure you've never used that word before? And mind you, he kept saying it. F. Lee Bailey kept saying nigga. You had to know that that man already knew the answer. And then he said, so what you're saying to me today, under oath, is that you've never used that word in the last 10 years. Mark Ferman, you had to know he knew. You had to know he knew. And I have to kind of look at the prosecution and side out of prosecution because the judge had already ruled that they could bring that evidence in that he had used racial slurs. So I'm kind of side-eyeing why y'all ain't get in front of that bullet that y'all knew was coming. Now, they didn't know about the tapes. We're going to get to them tapes in a minute. But you knew about the paper. You knew about the lawsuit. And you knew what he had said in the lawsuit. Baby, I would have had his psychiatrist testify. I don't know. I mean, the trial already lasted 5,000 years. What was one more day or two of testimony going to do? Especially when you know you needed his testimony because he found the damn glove. He found evidence that you needed to get in. So the evidence that Mark Ferman was bringing in was the whole glove. Now, here is the thing. Remember, I told you guys that after watching this documentary, I had changed my mind about what I believed about O.J. Simpson. So it was this episode. It started with the last episode with all of the DV and all of the history of him being unstable and stalking her and all that stuff that he was doing to her. But it was this episode. As they were going through the evidence, I was like, Now, do I think that the defense did a good job of reasonable doubt? Absolutely. And that's all they got to do. All they have to do is reasonable doubt. And I think they did a good job of that. Because if I was sitting on the jury, you bring me Mark Ferman, right? So now I don't believe nothing that Mark Ferman said. Then you say, well, you know, he was by himself behind that shed where they found the other glove. Right? Then they started talking about the blood evidence, y'all. Baby, when they said there was some droplets of blood found at the scene, like walking away from the crime scene. And when they tested that blood at 2 different labs, it was O.J. Simpson's blood. I said, well, shit. Then the blood that was found inside of the Bronco was O.J. Simpson, Ron Goldman, and Nicole Simpson's blood. I said, oh, well, damn. Then they found blood inside of O.J. Simpson's house. Nicole, Ron, O.J. Now, Nicole, you probably could have got away with, right? She used to live there, whatever. Obviously, you can get away with O.J.'s blood. But Ron Goldman, oh, I can't do my tap, tap, tap. Ron Goldman, how his blood end up inside of O.J. Simpson's house? And they tested it at 2 different labs. So, but then they put Mr. Fong on the stand. Now, Mr. Fong was the person that collected the evidence. He was the head guy that collected the evidence. Baby, they ripped that man apart. They showed where he collected evidence without a glove on. They showed where the person that collected O.J. Simpson's blood brought it back to the crime scene and it was unattended. So now you, again, as a jury member, you giving me reasonable doubt. Oh, well, so you mean somebody went over to O.J. Simpson's house, got a blood sample from him, brought it back to the crime scene, and it was unattended. And now all of a sudden we got drops of blood that belong to O.J. Simpson. See, as a jury member, you can't feel like they were crazy. You know what I'm saying? You can't feel like they were crazy. Then there was some evidence that was collected and sat in somebody's trunk over the weekend. I'm sorry, what? How you don't go back to work and clock that evidence in? How you don't check that evidence in? Baby, by the time they got done cross-examining that Mr. Fong, I felt bad because I know he got fired. I ain't even Google it. I don't know, but at the most, you at least got demoted. Now you probably got fired, but you at least got demoted. Ain't no way in hell. They had videotape footage of this man mishandling the evidence. And I mean, it was just layers on layers on layers. Now, Barry, what's his name? Barry Scheck. Okay. I just want to make sure I went over everything. Oh, let me go back to that. Hold on, because I want to go back to this right here. I'm going through my notes, but I want to make sure I'm staying in order. Okay. Here's when I knew it was after this happened and the way these people talked about Barry Scheck. The prosecuting attorneys talked about Barry Scheck. The other cops, the way they talked about Barry Scheck. And Barry Scheck was a white guy that was on the defense team. He was like, they said by the time the trial was over, he was second chair. The way they talked about this man with so much venom, as if Marsha Clark was like, and he lied, and he was disingenuous, and he knew he was lying, and he knew that what he was saying just couldn't be true. And Barry Scheck, again, he was interviewed, and they asked him, the producer or the person off camera asked him and said, right, they covered the bodies from the blankets from Nicole's house. Yeah, thank you, Chuck. I knew it was just stuff on top of stuff. But they asked him, they said, they were like, so do you believe that evidence was planted? I mean, when you were saying it, do you really believe it? And I love the way he answered the question. Basically, he was like, that wasn't my job. It wasn't my job to present what could have happened. It was my job to give reasonable doubt. And here's what I knew. I said, and here's when I knew that that the defense had outmaneuvered the prosecution, because they resorted to basically being angry at, he knew that couldn't happen. He knew that was just not true. Did he break the ethics of law? Did he manufacture evidence? No, he took what happened and he gave an alternative narration of the evidence. He didn't come out and lie. He didn't even make it seem like this person. I mean, Mark Ferman, they was just trying to say he was just a racist cop that planted evidence. But with Mr. Fong, they were just basically making it look like he was incompetent and that the LAPD engaged in bad tactics or bad policies when it came to collecting evidence. So you're mad at him because he was able to create a version of events that didn't coincide with what you wanted the jury to hear. He wasn't wrong. That's his job. That's what the fuck he was getting paid to do. And O.J. Simpson was paying him a lot of money to do it. So I was like, that's what I knew then. I said, oh, y'all got caught up in what y'all thought was right and what y'all thought was fair instead of making sure that y'all shit was tight. Oh, okay. Right, Yana, they sounded like crybabies. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I want to go back to this. I wrote this in my notes, and I want to go back to this. Marsha Clark said, it might not have been Marsha Clark, so let me not put a name on it because I didn't write who said it, but somebody said once they allowed race in this case, it changed. You know, I just wrote race in this case. Maybe they said it changed everything or whatever. And I put in my notes, I said that was the problem. See, here was the problem with the prosecution. And the sad thing is this documentary was done about 10 years ago, but that was still about 10 years after the case, right? Maybe even more. The sad thing is that 10 years later, 12 years, however many years after the verdict, y'all still don't get it. Y'all still don't get it. Nobody allowed race in this case. It was there from the beginning, and it didn't matter because Marsha. Now I do know that Marsha Clark said this. She said this later on, but she said, and I'm paraphrasing, that she was angry that that they were basically working so hard to defend a black man that Johnny Cochran was using a race card for a black man that never wanted to be a part of the black community or identified as as part of the black community. Let me explain something to y'all. O.J. Simpson didn't need to want to be a part of the committee. I mean, of the community. He fucking was. The problem wasn't whether O.J. Simpson wanted to be seen as a black man or not. The problem was he was going to always be seen as a black man. And even though there may have been moments at the peak of his career when he was playing college and he was making a lot of money for them white folks for the college, and then when he went to the NFL and he was pushing them and doing, when he was making money for them, they allowed him to think they forgot. But please let me understand with you guys. They still will never forget who the fuck O.J. Simpson was. Because just like when Mark Ferman rolled up in that neighborhood and saw that black man standing with a bat and that white woman crying on the curb, he was going to always be a nigga. And that was part of the problem. Y'all thought that Johnny Cochran brought race in. No. Johnny Cochran put a magnifying glass on what all of us always knew was there. And the problem is y'all became victims of the systemic racism that existed in the LAPD. Let's be clear. Mark Ferman is not an anomaly. Mark Ferman was not the exception. He was the fucking rule. And you guys hinged your case on someone who was a racist. Because what you're not going to do is sit here and sell me a dream that this man could use the language, say the things that he said, talk about how he enjoyed beating up and torturing niggas, and not tell me that man wasn't racist. So I don't care. That's my opinion. That's how I feel. That is how I feel. And ain't nobody going to change my opinion on that. But that was the problem. And as somebody just said, it was 20 years later. So the sad part is that 20 years later, you still had the cops that were a part of that case, the prosecutors that were a part of that case that still didn't understand. Nobody brought race in. Race was there. And we couldn't get around that. The mere fact that you did have this rich black man married to this younger white woman, the idea that, I'm about to say something else that's going to make some of y'all mad. Y'all not going to like what I'm getting ready to say after this, and I get it. The other night we were doing, what were we talking about the other night, child? We were talking about, what were we talking about? I think it was Amanda Seales. Yes. When we were talking about Amanda Seales, and people got to arguing in the chat about people being mixed, and if they're mixed, then they're not black, and they're this and they're that. I don't even have them arguments with nobody no more. You notice I skipped right over all that. I let y'all argue in the chat. I let y'all claw at the chat. I was, as long as nobody got disrespectful, and I had mods that with a Snoop. I knew El Teddy was there, Abby was there, Tracy was there. I think Don was even there. I trust my mods, and I know that they know how far to let people go. But let me explain to you why it don't bother me. When I remember when I was younger, there was this whole debate about Tiger Woods, and people were offended when Tiger Woods was saying, listen, I'm what he used to call himself Blasian or whatever the hell he used to say, when he would mix black and Asian, because he said I can't claim one and not claim the other because that would be disrespectful. My mother is Asian, my dad is black, and I am both, right? And people used to always get mad and be like, he's denying his black heritage and da-da-da-da. Let me tell you why that shit didn't never bother me. You want to know why that never bothered me and why I don't even get into that argument? Kablasian. Okay, thank you, baby. You know why I never got into that argument about whether somebody's mixed or not and if they're black or not? First of all, I think that's an ignorant ass conversation. So if that offends somebody in the chat, then oh well, I'm sorry. But I think that's an ignorant ass conversation. What up, Danny? I think that's some ignorant shit to say. But here's why it don't even bother me. And what I always say, I said it about Tiger Woods and I say it about anybody else. And what I always say is, I don't have to put Tiger Woods and make him be black or make somebody claim them. I ain't got to do it. You know why I don't have to do it? Because society is going to remind him. When Tiger Woods got into all that damn trouble with his ex-wife, and they had the incident with the golf club at the back of the car and all of that shit, he was reminded very quickly who the fuck he was. I don't need to tell him nothing. He was reminded very quickly who the hell he was. Same thing with O.J. Simpson. I didn't need to tell O.J. Simpson who he was. O.J. Simpson learned the hard way. The last 30 years, 20 years of that man's life, he knew who he was. And when I hear people say that to me that is so damn ignorant. When I hear people say, oh, because somebody in the chat was saying, well, I don't claim if you're mixed and you're not black. And no, somebody in the chat said, if you're white presenting, somebody even went so far to say white presenting, you're not black. White presenting? So you mean to tell me Lena Horne wasn't black? Thurgood Marshall wasn't black? I mean, I could probably think of 4 or 5 more people if I sit here long enough, but those are just the first 2 that pop off my head. So you mean to tell me that just because somebody could, quote unquote, pass Now they can't be black either. That's why I don't even, y'all, I let them people argue in the chat. I didn't even say nothing about it. But at the end of the day, I don't have to remind nobody who the hell they are. First of all, that ain't my business. That's just not even my business. Second of all, I don't need to remind nobody because at the end of the day, society will remind them. And I know I went off on a tangent, my apologies, but when I was watching it, that whole part of the episode where they were talking about the race car, I was like, they still don't get it. Nobody played shit. Johnny Cochran didn't play the race card. Johnny Cochran didn't play the race card. It was always there. And at the end of the day, if O.J. Simpson was a middle-class black man, or God forbid, a poor one, he would have been doing life. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, some people might say he deserved to. Okay, I'm not about to sit here and argue about that either because, you know, we feel how we feel. But at the end of the day, this whole, and I said it before, and I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me get back to my notes. Well, let me say this because I might forget to say it later. At the end of the day, this whole trial was, and the reason why so many people supported O.J. Simpson is because they saw their experience and what he was dealing with. They threw out the whole, he hung with white people. He married a white woman. Hell, they even threw out that he cheated on his black wife with this white woman. After they threw all of that stuff out as the trial went on and they started seeing the crooks of the reality of what he was dealing with, whether people believed it or not, whether they agree with it or not, when you see a Mark Ferman, it brings back all of your experiences with a quote-unquote crooked cop, with a quote-unquote racist cop, with a quote-unquote rude, disrespectful cop. It brings back every instance of you being pulled over just because you're driving a nice car or you're driving through a nice neighborhood. All of those things are things that we as Black Americans can relate to. So it was no longer really about O.J. Simpson. It was about giving America a taste of its own fucking medicine. Excuse my language, but okay. Moving on. So then they started talking about, hold on, let me see. Evidence collection. Okay. So then they started talking about how O.J. Simpson was able to make money while he was in jail. So he basically continued to bring money in to pay for his attorneys through signing autographs. They said basically the demand for his autograph went up. And the guy was saying, you know, instead of taking jerseys into the jail for him to sign, they would just take a 2 because his number was 32. So they would just take a 2 and he would just sign a bunch of 2s and then they would sew that 2 onto the jersey, right? So it was less cumbersome and it was definitely easier for him to sign those. Instead of taking a whole football in, they would just take a flap off of the football that they would then sew onto the football with his signature. They even made, even his cards. And he made over $3 million while he was sitting in jail just off of autographs. Shit, they said it was one where they had him and Johnny Cochran signing like a picture of them in court, and Johnny Cochran was signing and O.J. Simpson. I said, shoot, if I was Johnny Cochran, I would sign it too. If you knew this how you was getting paid, give me the I sign it. Just make sure that the check gonna clear next month. Bring them here. Johnny Cochran wasn't no fool. And they said that it made Ron Goldman's family upset, but at the end of the day, he was innocent until proven guilty, and there was nothing barring him from being able to do that while he was in jail. Like there was no rule that said he couldn't do it. So, you know, but they said he made over $3 million just signing autographs while he was in jail. And again, that's $3 million 30 years ago. Okay. Now we got the gloves. They were able to show that the gloves that were found were from a limited edition of some sort of designer glove that was sold in Bloomingdale's. They were able to show a credit card receipt from Nicole Simpson where she actually bought a pair of those gloves in extra large, which is the size that they found. So in my mind, they were able to sort of connect, again, May not have been the exact pair of gloves, but they were able to connect that it was reasonable that a pair of those gloves were around between O.J. Simpson's house and Nicole Brown Simpson's house, right? But here's the other thing that you have to wrap your brain around. And I'm not saying that makes it true or not true. You just have to wrap your brain around that this was premeditated. The fact that he did wear gloves, the fact that he did bring a knife with him tells you that whatever happened that pissed him off that night, that put him in that level of rage, he went there to do what he did. It wasn't like they got into an argument and he lost his temper. No, sir. You picked up a pair of gloves and a knife. You went there to do what you did. I agree, Yana, and I didn't like that either. The burden of proof just isn't the same, but I didn't like the fact that he was found innocent of the crime, but still was found guilty in civil. But again, that was the lick back, right? That was the lick back. So I wrote in my notes that F. Lee Bailey gaslit Chris Darden. So there was this whole debate about the gloves, right? Johnny Cochran tries the gloves on, and the gloves absolutely drown his hand, right? The gloves are so big. And the jurors were like, they should have left it alone, because in my mind, I'm looking at the glove and I'm looking how big it is on Johnny Cochran's hand. And in my mind, I'm just assuming it fits O.J. Simpson. I'm assuming it fits him. The prosecution had decided they weren't going to put the glove on. They weren't going to make O.J. Simpson put the glove on. Chris Darden wanted to do it. They were like, why? Chris Darden said, well, they're going to... No, what happened was F. Lee Bailey basically went up to Chris Darden and he talked shit to him. He went up to Chris Darden and was like, bruh, if you don't, we will. You better get in front of this, because if you don't make him try on the glove, we're going to do it. So Chris Darden, believing F. Lee Bailey, went back and was like, look, we need to make OJ try on this glove, because if we don't, they are. And Marsha Clark's thing was, let them put that glove on OJ Simpson. And then we can talk about how stupid, how crazy, how much of a circus act it is. Because at the end of the day, there's no way that glove is going to fit over his hand with the latex, with shrinkage. Like, there's no way that glove is, we can't guarantee that the glove is going to fit on that man's hand. Because remember, it was evidence, so he had to wear a latex glove. Baby, they argued to get that. Chris Darden argued for the judge to make O.J. Simpson try that glove on. They went before, they had a sidebar. And baby, they said that when Johnny Cochran came back over to the table to tell them what the judge said, he said, I don't want anybody to make a reaction. He said, but the judge is going to let them do it. He said, don't nobody react. Baby. They told O.J. Simpson to put that damn glove on, and he turned it into a moment. And you could see it. He went to go put the glove on. And when he realized that glove didn't fit, baby, his face lit up. Like, his face lit up, okay? Now, one of his friends alleges that OJ stopped taking his arthritis medicine so that his hands would swell up even more. That could be true. That could not be true. I don't know that to be a fact. I don't put it past OJ at this point, child. I don't put nothing past OJ. But I need to be a storyteller. This is good. But I mean, that's what he was doing, y'all. He was so extra, right? But again, if I'm on the jury, I'm like, well, hell, the glove don't even fit. Y'all see that? It don't fit, y'all. The glove don't. It don't fit. So we have a racist cop that, we don't believe. We have a crime lab that we have seen mismanaging the evidence. And now we have the key evidence, this glove that doesn't even fit. Yeah, they were putting 10 on 20 with the glove, but the point is, y'all should have never, listen. Rule number one, thank you, everybody. Rule number one is you don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. You damn sure don't make the present evidence that you don't know to conclude. Why would you ask that man to put that glove on? Because here's the thing, I always thought, because let me tell y'all something. There's absolutely no way on this side of heaven that if it was me, that glove was gonna fit. I don't care what I had to do. I don't care what I had to do. That glove wasn't gonna fit. I don't care. I don't care. Baby, that glove wasn't gonna fit. So it was just stupid. And again, that shows to me the desperation. That shows to me the desperation. Let me get back to my notes because, baby, I ain't even got to the good stuff. I mean, I got to the good stuff, but you know what I'm saying. So then they let us hear, and this is the part. If you go back and watch the documentary, this is the episode 4 is the episode that I'm going to tell you if you have a weak stomach or you don't want to see all of the graphicness of the crime scene. Episode 4 is the one that you may want to listen to and not necessarily watch because they show everything. They show the pictures of Ron Goldman, of Nicole, the blood. They show the injuries, and it's very graphic. I accidentally looked up because I knew, and I was purposely not looking, and I accidentally looked up and saw something that I didn't want to see. I'm not going to tell y'all what it is in case y'all, you know, I don't want to upset nobody. But I was like, damn it, that's not what I didn't want to see that. So I'm going to definitely warn you about episode 4 as it relates to that. But we hear the corner, and I think this was what finally did it. Again, I'm trying to remember when I changed my mind about who I thought was guilty or not guilty. When I heard the coroner give how it went down, that threw my theory out the water that I always held on to was, well, if we're standing there and somebody comes up and starts attacking us, da 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 da. But once I heard how the coroner explained how it probably went down, then I was like, oh, okay, I could see how it could have went down that way. So the coroner said, based on the evidence, to the best of their ability, this is how they say it went down. Nicole opened the door expecting it to be Ron because Ron was on his way with her glasses. He had already called, said he was coming. The restaurant was only about 10 minutes away from her house. So she opens the door expecting it to be Ron. It's OJ. They said that OJ hit her with something because she had blunt trauma to the side of her head, that he hit her with something. They said probably the butt of the knife or something else, maybe his fist. I don't know. But she basically, and then then I believe they said he stabbed her and subdued her. Before he finished the job, Ron Goldman walks up and they said that OJ comes up behind Ron Goldman and attacks him that way. That is where the scuffle takes place, where they believe is where OJ got cut, where the glove ends up coming off. And somehow in the scuffle, OJ ends up backing Ron Goldman into the corner of her courtyard where he was basically surrounded. It was really nowhere for him to run. There was a fence, it was a gate on this side, a gate on this side, and then there was a tree. And basically his only escape route is where OJ was. The assailant. And that is where he got his fatal cuts, stabs, what have you. They said then OJ went back to Nicole, I guess, to make sure she was gone. And that is where that cut comes into play. And then he went back to Ron Goldman. They said it was definitely overkill, which a lot of times we know from watching Law and Order that overkill usually means it's personal, right? Overkill, up and close, it usually means that there's a personal level to it. They said it was definitely overkill. And then that's where the trail of blood drops goes through her backyard into the alley where they believe the Bronco was parked. Now, when you break it down like that, I was like, oh. Well, that kind of blows my theory out of the water. Because my theory was always, how you going to convince me that this happened without somebody helping him or without there being a bigger fight? Well, that makes sense. So after that, all of a sudden, the Mark Ferman tapes show up. Marsha Clark says she got a phone call. And they were like, we got some bad news. Hey, girl. Hey, what's up? Another round? Hey, boo. She said, we got some bad news. And they were like, oh, my gosh, what more could go wrong? They said, girl, we got a whole bunch of tapes with Mark Ferman saying a whole bunch of stuff. And she was like, fuck. And at that point, once they heard them tapes, baby, they was done with Mark Ferman. They were through with Mark Ferman, okay? The prosecution didn't want to have nothing else to do with him. They didn't have his back. They didn't defend none of that, child. None of that. Now, they did say that they got phone calls from black officers defending him, talking about he's not racist. But at that point, the black cops that were trying to defend him, they really weren't defending Mark Ferman. They were really defending the LAPD. Because at this point, the LAPD is on trial. You got your crime lab looking crazy, right? You got your lead detective being a racist. And all these other things that have happened as it relates to this trial. So honestly, in my mind, the people that were defending Mark Ferman, I don't think they were really defending Mark Ferman. They were defending the LAPD. They were like, we can't take no more hits. The hits just keep coming. So the tapes get played in court, but not in front of the jury. It's like 3. So what happened was Mark Ferman was being interviewed for a book. For a screenplay. This woman was writing a screenplay on the LAPD, and she interviewed him for her screenplay. She wanted him to tell her stories. Like, what is your life like as an LAPD cop? What have your experiences been? And Mark Ferman is telling these stories. First of all, he using nickel, right? Even unprovoked. Like, it's not even like she asked him. He was just like, yeah, so these niggas, yeah, they was a bunch of niggas. Like, it was like, again, this is how you talk, sir. Nobody asked you. This is how you talk. So then he's telling stories about torture. He's telling stories about police brutality. And guess what else, y'all? See, I can't tap can y'all hear the tap? Guess what else, y'all? Guess what else Mark Ferman is telling stories about doing in these interviews? Planting evidence. Planting evidence. Is that not what the defense have been trying to convince the jury of from day one about Mark Ferman? That this man has a capacity to plant evidence, that he planted that glove. So now you have him, in his own words, only 4 years earlier, doing an interview admitting to planting evidence on suspects. Bitch. Now, Judge Ito, so they had this whole protest because they were like, the jury need to hear the tapes. The jury need to hear all 3 hours of them tapes, right? Baby, we saw Yo-Yo was out there protesting. So come to find out, the judge was allowed only, I think, 3 snippets. And those 3 snippets were enough. Because here's the thing. You ain't needed to be overkill. You ain't needed to be overkill. You just needed people to know that this man, we've been telling you about him the whole trial. See, here's the way it happened was real sweet too, right? Because we've been telling you about this man the whole trial. We told you he planted evidence at the beginning of this trial. We told you he was a racist at the beginning of this trial. And now we're getting to the end of the trial and we're bringing it full circle. And we're like, didn't we tell y'all? Y'all thought we was crazy. Y'all thought we was just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what stuck. Oh, no, no, no. Look. He's a racist. We said it. Do you believe us now? And now what that says to the jury is, well, that sounded crazy. Like, even if you were on the jury and you said that is so far-fetched, that man ain't planting no evidence. That's crazy. But now you hear his own words of him saying, yeah, I've planted evidence before. Baby, between that and the glove and the crime lab collecting evidence and keeping it in their car overnight, baby, if I was on that jury, I don't know if I find him guilty. What do y'all think? Based on that information, forget about O.J. Simpson, blah, 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 blah. Based on that evidence, again, remember, it's reasonable doubt. It doesn't say no doubt. It doesn't say you have to be 100% convinced that he's innocent. It says, is there reasonable doubt? Yeah, Yana, I agree. They should have put some sort of warning on there before they showed those pictures. I was really surprised that they showed those pictures that plainly like that. I really feel like they should have put some sort of warning up before they flashed those pictures. But anyway, law enforcement let her get unalived and let the unaliver get off. I don't know if I agree with that, C. Golden. I don't know about law enforcement let her. How did they let her get unalived? I don't know how they let her. They did not prove their case. The jury got it right. That's what I'm saying. Like, again, if I'm on the jury and I'm listening to all these things, I'm like, well, I mean, he could have done it, but hell, it could have been 3-4 other people too. And Mark Ferman definitely gave them a lot of that reasonable doubt. Definitely gave them a lot of that reasonable doubt. All right. I'm almost done, y'all. So when they put Mark Ferman back on trial to basically impeach him, right? Because he lied under oath. He said he never said nigger. He pled the fifth. Now, of course, at that point, he should have pled the fifth because he possibly could be facing perjury charges at that point. So he had an attorney. His attorney told him to plead the fifth. But the one thing they wanted him to answer was when when the defense asked the question, have you ever planted evidence? And instead of him saying no, he pled the fifth. Which again, if I'm on the jury, okay, well, I understand why you pled the fifth about what you had lied about using the word nigga and all of that. Okay, but when they ask you point blank, have you ever planted evidence and you plead the fifth? Again, in my time working for the law offices of Hood and Ghetto, I understand why he pled the fifth, right? But if I'm on the jury, I'm side-eyeing it. If I'm on the jury, I'm like, why he couldn't just say no? Why he couldn't just say no, y'all? He couldn't just say no? He couldn't do that? Oh. C. Golden said, turning a blind eye to DV. Well, let me say this about that. First of all, the laws were different then than they are now. The laws are different when it comes to DV, but in some cases, not everything. But, you know, it's really, really hard when the woman won't cooperate, right? Did O.J. Simpson get the celebrity card when they showed up at his house and he was able to sweet talk them? Yeah, true. Yeah. But did Nicole make it any easier? No, she didn't. She wouldn't press charges. She kept going back. And I'm not victim blaming. I'm just saying the cops can only write a report if there's a victim reporting the crime. Now, can they write it up anyway? Yes. But then the DA would have to decide if they're going to take up the case. And if the DA decides that they're not going to take up the case, because if there's no victim to say, yes, this happened to me. Now, do I think more could have been done? Yes. Yes, more could have been done. But I don't know if I put that at the feet of the cops. Now, I could put a lot of shit on the cops. But I don't know if I put that on the feet of the cops. I don't know if I put that on them. But I do feel like his celebrity kept him under the radar. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. All right. I already talked about race on trial. I wrote that in my notes. We already had that conversation. And I even wrote the white cops are pissing me off. So I already addressed what I had in my notes. So part 5 deals with what happened. Well, it deals with the acquittal and then what happened after the acquittal. The last thing is it talks about the closing arguments, and they talk about, you know, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. But they also talk about something that I think a lot of people forget about. They talk about in Johnny Cochran's closing argument how he compared Mark Ferman to Hitler. And of course, that pissed everybody off, including Ron Goldman, who obviously they're Jewish. So, of course, comparing anybody to Hitler to a Jewish person takes it to another level. But let me say this. The point that he was making was about the silence that allowed Hitler to rise to power and be able to do the things that he did unchecked. That is what he was. If you listen to what he said, that is what he was talking about. He wasn't saying that Mark Ferman caused a Holocaust. That's not what he was saying. He was talking about the fact that Hitler was allowed to spread his racist agenda unchecked, and everybody made excuses, or they turned a blind eye, or they didn't do anything about it. And he was talking about Mark Ferman was the symbolic of the racism, the unchecked racism that permeated in the LAPD. Now, was it over a lot of people's head? Sure, because they took it literal. But I heard what he said, and I didn't take it literal. Again, I'm not Jewish, so I don't have the same history as it relates to Hitler as they do. So I'm not going to take away their experience, and I'm not going to take away their point of view. But I saw what he was doing and connecting the unchecked power of racism against the unchecked power of racism in the LAPD. That's how I took it. But at the end of the day, it was what it was. I mean, he said it. Don't go expecting nuance interpretation. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, C. Golden. Like, I get it if people didn't get it. Like, I understand that being, and I don't even want to sound like elitist when I say that, but I understand that probably went over people's head. Because it was a lot. It was a lot to take in. Like, it was a lot to be able to make those connections. And I'm not even saying that I'm right. I'm saying that's how I took it. Maybe he did mean it literally, but that's not, I don't think he meant it literally because that's not what he said. He was talking about the unchecked power. Because he started off talking about the definition of racist, right? And he was saying the definition of racist is somebody who has power over you and the power to boom, 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 boom. And that's how he went into that. So, yeah. So that was party I agree, Marnie. I don't think Johnny was wrong. Like I said, that's what I heard. Now people may not have heard the same thing, and that's okay. Y'all know I respect that. But that's what it was. So it ended there. And so the next episode is going to get into the verdict and basically what happened after the verdict. Y'all know he was acquitted, and then he had the civil trial, and then he had the whole situation in Las Vegas. So we'll get into that. I'm going to be honest with you guys. That probably will be next week, because tomorrow night we have Never Ever Met. Saturday night we have game night. Sunday we have the premiere of The Real Housewives of New Jersey. Baby, I still owe y'all 2 weeks of Martha's Vineyard. Child, and I ain't forgot about Capote. I know that the people who rock with me are going to still rock with me for Capote, but we're going to get to that. We're going to get to Capote. This weekend is pretty open for me, so I'm going to try to get caught up with some stuff this weekend. But I got Chasing. Yep, I got Chasing Dallas. Next weekend, y'all know it's Mother's Day. I'm going to be busy Saturday and Sunday of next week because my nephew is in town for his graduation, and then Sunday is Mother's Day. And y'all know I'm got to go to this Carlos King thing and do Mother's Day. The weekend after that, I'm going to be in Atlanta. So this is really my only free weekend for the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to try to get as much stuff done this weekend. I'm trying to be working this weekend, y'all. All right. With that being said, let me get out of here. I will talk to y'all tomorrow. Mwah. Peace.